Welcome, Dr. Gordon Jones, University of South Carolina, Universal Health Coin, the Validity Project, and of course, songwriter for the blockchain movement in general. Welcome, Gordon.
Hey, how's it going, Spencer? I appreciate that.
Great. What does the halving in general and for Horizen specifically mean to you as an observer of the blockchain scene?
Wow. Well, first of all, happy birthday. And that's really what it means, right? Your Horizon Network has attained its first birthday. So I'm really impressed with that. I know it's been a long road. Met Rob Viglione about 3 years ago at the University of South Carolina, and that's when I first learned about the project. And so I've been keeping track. And so I think the halving is really um, first of all, it's important that it's occurring, but it's also a very significant milestone in any project's life. So yeah, I have great respect for that.
Great. Tell me about Validity.
The Validity Project. So we're calling it a project now. It's not a company yet, but I teach blockchain and information sciences at the University of South Carolina. And in the midst of our course, a couple of students and I came up with an idea on initially it was verifying employment. So doing your employee background check that an employer is going to do on you before they hire you, but doing it on yourself and having all that data verified and embedded into a wallet system with the proof on the blockchain, so that when you go for an interview and you present your resume, you're presenting a wallet-based resume that's already verified with immutable data, so the employer can trust that information and accept it, and then not even have to do that background check, take the time or spend the money to do that. And if they want to hire you right then, you could even go to work right then. You can't do that today. So that was the original idea, and it's blossomed from there to include basic state identification information, just your driver's license. And then even, when the COVID vaccine comes out, nobody's talking about how we're going to open up these venues. Okay, everybody supposedly is going to get the vaccine, but I promise you 50% of the people on earth are not going to get it because they don't trust it. So if they want to go to a football game and the football stadium wants to make sure that everybody's been vaccinated that's entering the gates, then there's going to have to be some way to do that. And so we believe we created a model where we can verify vaccines, include that in a wallet system with a QR code, and then allow large venue like that just to scan QR codes as they're entering, giving them access to the stadium. So those are kind of our primary objectives with the Validity Project, and we're raising our seed funds through an Indiegogo campaign right now, and it's all community based. I mean, I'm trying to let the students drive the process as much as possible so that they can get the experience of a startup. But anyway, that's what that
Great,
project.
Gordon.
Yeah.
In the interest of transparency, I have to admit that I'm an advisor to the project, and we'll
Yeah,
be
I just
providing
recruited
appropriate.
you. So,
Yes, yes, and I'll be providing appropriate links for the project in the show notes. And if you like, for the benefit of the people who are listening, what is the website for the funding on Indiegogo?
yeah, so you just go to Indiegogo and search for Validity. So it sounds just like the word validity with the T, but it's Validity. Valid IDE is the word. And so when you go to Indiegogo, you can either just plug that word in or go to the Validity Project on Indiegogo and you'll be able to find it. Or you can just go to validityvalidide.com and then you can link over to the Indiegogo campaign.
And I believe there's some swag to be had if you become a supporter. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now we've got a data blocker to help on security, but we're going to have the big swag, hats and shirts and all that coming down the pipe.
Great. So that's a fascinating idea because we do live in these weird times with COVID and everything like that. And there's, of course, a tremendous philosophical discussion to be had about exactly how, whether, or if you should reveal your COVID status or any vaccine status. And right now, when we've seen people like Ticketmaster saying that they're going to require proof of vaccination status for being able to attend one of their venues, well, we're seeing a tremendous amount of conversation about artists as to whether they want to participate in such a regime or not. And the idea of a system which can selectively and appropriately reveal identification information that's only specific to the transaction has got a lot of appeal to me. Just as I think I was speaking with Rolf Sluice earlier, and he was talking about why should his teenage daughters, who perhaps are either about to achieve drinking age or about to, why should they present an ID that shows their home address to some random bouncer in 5 Points?
That's right.
That doesn't make sense. All they need to do is legally prove that they're of age. They don't need to say, yes, and I live in such and such a house. No, I don't think that makes sense at all. And so Rolf has a tremendously valid point on that.
Yeah, and so really, if you think about it, we're all in the blockchain arena, right? And so the really when Bitcoin first came out and we were talking about Bitcoin and doing all that and leveraging and developing the blockchain, most of us were libertarian. So we were building this to make it decentralized so that the government or a private enterprise wasn't in control. So if we let the government dictate that we are going to have to show proof of our vaccine, then they're going to control it. So what our premise with the Validity Project is let's go ahead and create an identity wallet that we'll be able to use for a bunch of different things, but we're in control of it. And this really falls under the whole genre of self-sovereign identity. So, which is really broad, but it's bubbling up quite well in the community worldwide in regards to how do we retake control of our identity, both physically and online? Because right now, I call them the GAFTMs, GAAFTM, and that stands for Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, and Microsoft. And then they represent all the other online entities. So I call them the GAFTMs. They're in control of our identity right now. They know more about us than we know about ourselves. And in order for us to regain control of that, our identity, we're going to have to create a system that is currently called self-sovereign identity to be able to do that. And so that's our project came out wanting to verify our background for employment, but now we realize we're in this bigger thing called self-sovereign identity or decentralized identity. And it's really huge. I mean, it's projected to be by 2024 a $12 billion industry itself. So it's ramping up to be pretty good. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, Gordon, I certainly am as well. Just as Bitcoin led the way in showing that there was money that could be separated from government, or return to the idea of money that was separate from government, I think the idea that blockchain has a means in which we can separate proof of identity from government. There is no reason that government has to be involved in determining who you are. We are all individuals who are in charge of ourselves. We have that responsibility. We have that right. We have the ability to reclaim that from government. And I think that Horizen itself, if you look into our founding documents and the white papers, we are very libertarian, free market oriented. It's literally baked into the code. So like so much of the blockchain movement, that's the philosophical basis for us. And I'm happy to embrace it and happy to associate myself with the Validity Project.
Well, and just to point out, so we're already talking to the South Carolina DMV. So they're the entity that verifies that you have the right to drive a car in the state of South Carolina. So we're going to work with governments, right? So at the end of the day, that's what we call a verified credential. And that verified credential that allows me to drive legally in the state of South Carolina and then in the United States would become a part of your wallet. So you may still have to have your physical driver's license, but we can get the state to, we can verify with the state that you are legally allowed to drive, and then create a verified credential that's embedded in your wallet. And that can be a passport and all those different kinds of things. So there's a lot of different ways of which the government has created identities or pieces of our identity. Social security number is another one. What we'll be able to do is just, they're what we call the issuer of the credential. They send us the information and we're verifying that it is valid. And then that becomes a verified credential that we then push into your wallet, that you're holding all of your credentials. So we don't even hold all the credentials. Your wallet holds all the credentials. We're just leveraging blockchain to have proof that that is a verified credential. So it doesn't have your personal information on it. All it is basically very similar to a hash, where it's a protocol that we've given it an identity of itself within your wallet to be a verified credential.
I love the idea that we're going to reduce the passport to just another data point. I like the passport as a personal identification in our current system because it does not have any verifiable or any specific identifying information about you as to where you live. So I love going into a convenience store, and when with this white hair, they decide to ask me if I'm old enough to drink a beer, I flash my passport. The clerk gets a puzzled look, calls the manager. He wants to know what the heck this is. I said, well, it is a document provided by the United States government that proves who I am. He says, but it doesn't have that thing that I can scan. I said, well, that's a problem with your system. It's not a problem with the United States government. I can travel anywhere in the world on this. And at that point, eventually I get my beer. So it's one small bit of resistance against the illusion that we live in. So again, happy to associate myself with that project. Want to see it prosper, want to see it flourish. Please, folks, look at the show notes. Take a look at Validity. See if it's something that you want to associate yourself with. Gordon, thank you very much.
Hey, my pleasure. And hey, go out there and search for the song Blockchain Movement on all of your music platforms, because I think you'll appreciate what we've done in song and honoring blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Great, Gordon. Thank you.